Hi YouTube, so my name is Regina and I draw a lot of mice. And today I decided to redraw and redesign my very old character Alex, who's a mouse character who wields a sword, as you can see. And I've had this character for many, many years, and I recently started drawing more characters for a comic and doing a little bit more design for a comic, and I had trouble kind of matching these characters to her more cartoony design. And so, in considering their proportions and kind of how they're a little more detailed and things like that, whereas her design is a little bit more plain, I decided to kind of redesign her. And I was also inspired to redesign her by a video by Drawing with Waffles of her drawing a character based off her Instagram polls. I just thought it was interesting how she used like the skull of a monkey and things like that to help her design a yeti. And I wanted to try doing that with Alex. So I started with drawing the design of Alex that I've been doing a lot of recently, which was kind of a redesign of something I started doing this spring when I started feeling unsatisfied with how cartoony I'd drawn her before this. And I gave her kind of a thicker neck and I changed up her ears and I made her a little bit more, or a little bit less Mickey Mouse-ish in general, but I still wasn't really that happy with it. And so I started using these references of the skulls of mice this time to figure out how I could change up her appearance while also keeping her cartoony, because I'm not really a very realistic artist typically. Like, I don't do a lot of realism or really any realism. I just do cartoons, but still looking at the skull of a character is really important. Or the skull of like an animal when you're drawing something like this is kind of important to consider. Yeah, I did a lot of research when looking, doing this redesign, when making this video. I looked at a lot of references online for both like the color scheme and the drawings that I was doing. And I have previously seen a lot of like anthropomorphic characters online, obviously, but I tried not to be too influenced by that kind of thing. I mean, it's obviously you can't take any influence out of your art, but I tried to think of how I could draw her based off a mouse, instead of just how someone else would draw like a cartoon mouse. And then I started doing color swatching of both her previous colors, which were like that red and a bright yellow for her clothing, and some browns. And I eventually got out my swatch sheet to figure out which colors were most accurate. And I started swatching for her new color scheme, which is a little different than her old color scheme. I was having trouble I was looking at mice and I was having trouble finding ones that had, such a dark brown. Like, I was used to doing such a reddish brown, but really mice mostly have like a grayish brown coat. And I was looking up real mouse patterns and I was trying to, copy those from the internet. And I found a website of, I think it was like a mouse breeding website for mouse breeders, and I was looking at their the colors and things like that they had on their website. They like name all these colors, and I ended up going with a sable pointed appearance for Alex, except with the kind of spots near her cheeks, not exactly the perfectly round spots on her cheeks like I had before, but little spots under her eyes and still some spots for little like eyebrows, to kind of maintain the expressive appearance of her. And I was also looking at how my stand, they stand on their feet, which are like very long. Like actually what Alex says at the bottom of her, she kind of balances on her toes. And I wanted to diagram how their feet look. I spent a lot of time working on Alex's feet, so I don't think it's super changed from how I usually draw it. And just because of the fact that was one of the most like distinct things that I paid attention to when I began drawing her as a mouse character. I would pay attention to her feet, and then I would just give her like Mickey Mouse ears and not really pay that much attention to how I drew her face. So this redesign really was mostly in like the face. Since I was having so much trouble with the expressions in my other practice of doing her, I started trying some expressions. And then I moved on to the clothing, and the clothing of Alex. I've changed up the clothing and done a lot of different clothes for like the other characters in the comics, so I wasn't super concerned about this, but I decided to restyle her clothes anyways, even though I didn't really need to. But I wanted to keep the V-neck and asymmetrical like nature of her clothing because that's been pretty consistent with her character. And also the kind of baggy pants, because those help accentuate the fact that her legs are like non-human and make her a little bit more mouse-like than just purely anthropomorphic. And I was looking at a Renaissance fair website that sells antique clothing, which I don't remember the name of the website, but they had lots of neat clothing, and I ended up going with a design that was kind of it was probably like Victorian fashion, and it was a men's set of pants that I found that was like a really nice green color, and I kept that green color for the color swatching later on. And I also decided to change her accessories. When she was more cartoony, she had a necklace around her neck, and it ended up being that her necklace looked a little weird around her wide neck, and so I changed that to be an earring. So it has a significance in the comic itself, so I wanted to keep her having these like beads in descending size. So like one's smaller and one's much larger. And then I went back to color swatching, and I wasn't really sure if I should change it up a lot. And for the first round of trying, I actually changed her color design up a lot. I did kind of greens, which, like I said, I found those pants that were green and I was really inspired by them, so I started with that, and I wanted to do like an orange color. And yeah, my final colors weren't really perfect, but I decided to start drawing like a full body of her and like color it in and everything so I could see how it all looked together. So I started drawing this picture. I wasn't really satisfied with a lot of the poses that I did, and I never really ended up satisfied with this one. But at this point, I'd been drawing for a long time, and honestly, I was like not sure how much longer I wanted to spend working on these specific design features just for this one drawing. And so I just started lining it, even though I wasn't really happy with it. And I did that with a Micron pen, and one of the things that I didn't really think about when I was kind of putting all these pieces of clothes together was how it would look with her with her having gloves and a kind of vest or shirt-like thing. And this is something that I'll change later on, but in the comic it's necessary for her to have these gloves because she has this kind of crystal condition where her finger is like made of this glass-like crystal substance, hence the name of the comic Crystalline. And that's why I drew the hand in the upper left-hand corner, but normally she wears gloves for this. And so that was an important part to keep for the storyline, and I didn't really think about it when I was picking out what her shirt would be. And I also don't think I picked the right color of orange. I don't know. I was thinking that a like nice dark orange would go well with the brown and green color scheme, but it really didn't. So changing it up in that regards didn't go well. And then the colors of her feet were just difficult to do with marker. And I've never really had problems with Alex's skin color before this, but I wanted to change up the color of her tail to be more like a real mouse is typically their fleshy parts, like their hands and their feet are a little bit like very pale and pink like their nose, and then the tail is like a little bit darker. And so I tried that. And I wasn't really satisfied with that drawing. So moving on to a few days later. I know it's a bit of an abrupt switch, but a few days later, I had spent a lot of time on my college campus doing these sketches of Alex, and I did a whole bunch in her clothes, and I gave her a shirt underneath her vest. I looked into changing up her clothes, but I really didn't change it up other than giving her this shirt and changing the colors a little bit. And I did this in gouache paint while just between classes, and like I didn't record it because I was on my college campus and there was really nothing to like record with. So I did this drawing, and I didn't want to just end this video showing you the drawing, so I wanted to end on a process, which is why it took me so long to finish this video, because I decided to do a process of me redrawing this new design of Alex with my markers, which meant the color matching wasn't really perfect, because these are markers and not the gouache paint, which I could get any color I wanted with, and the markers, I have a lot of markers, but they still aren't perfect in terms of color matching capabilities to the colors that I had chosen. So I just kind of did the same thing as before, except with my new additions, like the shirt and like the pink, like the more pink vest and the pink shirt. I made her neck a little long in the sketch, and that made the finished drawing like a little imperfect. But I was still overall pretty decently happy with it. I did a marker test with the markers before. I did another picture with the markers before. That was a marker test, but I did it in the dark, and I didn't know which colors I had used for the skin tone. so I still wasn't satisfied with the skin tone at the end, because I picked up the wrong marker in the dark for the other marker drawing that I had done. And for this marker drawing, I was like, oh, I think it's that marker. And it was not that marker. It was not the marker that I had chosen in the middle of the night. So yeah, I just, did the rest of this drawing with finishing off with my markers and with my white gel pen. And I was a lot happier with it than I was with the first marker drawing I did, although I think the best one is the gouache drawing. And I think I'm going to keep this design for Alex for all my future drawings of her. I was super happy with the design with the sword. It matches the other characters of the comic much better. Hopefully, if you subscribe, if you like this video and you subscribe, you can see more of Alex in the future. I'll probably do more paintings like this with her and the other characters in the comic soon enough. Thank you, and goodbye.